Cam Newton has been, by Bill Belichick's own admission, the starter, and Bill has been very consistent with this. Cam's our starter, right? So it's Cam Newton's job to lose. That being said, they did draft Mac Jones, 15th overall. And Mac Jones, for as much sort of skepticism as there would have been from the masses if Mac Jones had gone 3rd overall.
Sure.
Like, people, you would think this guy had he had one of the single greatest seasons in college football history. He's obviously a very, very talented player. But the problem, Matthew, here is that when you've got 2 quarterbacks, one's the starter and you wonder if his leash is short, and the other, you don't know if he's going to start at all this year, how can you invest in either of them? So I'll ask you 2 questions. One, is either worth a redraft selection? Mm-hmm. And 2, for the fantasy value of everybody else on this roster, if you could have it your way, which one would you like to see start for the Patriots?
Cam Newton and Cam Newton.
Interesting.
That's the answer for both.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the redraft part first. So you think Cam is worth a redraft pick right now?
I do. Listen, I think he's in that QB2 tier that we talked about. He's not somebody that I want to go into a season counting on as my starter.
Right.
But as we sit here and we talk about and listen, I'm high on Trey Lance. I'm high on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
We both like Trevor Lawrence a lot as well. Like, there are guys in that range, and we talked about Baker Mayfield the other day. But yes, would I rather have Cam Newton than Baker Mayfield? Would I rather have Cam Newton than Ben Roethlisberger? You bet. Remember this. Last year, Cam Newton was the 16th best quarterback in fantasy in a year in which he wasn't 100% healthy. Remember, he contracted COVID early in the year, felt like, and we've heard since then that like he just never felt right. First year in a new offense. And his best wide receiver, his best pass-catching option on offense was Jacoby Myers.
Right.
Now, Jacoby Myers is a nice NFL story. You know what I mean? And, like, nice little player, but he should not be the number one on any NFL franchise, and he was. He was the alpha wide receiver for Cam Newton last year. So now you get a second year in Josh McDaniels' system for Cam Newton. You add a bunch of pass catchers this offseason. We're going to get into them in more detail, but obviously you add Nelson Aguilar. You add Jonnu Smith. You add Hunter Henry. You have Jacoby Myers coming back, right? They have some nice pass catchers. They have James White as well in the backfield. There's one other guy I'm forgetting about, who's from the 49ers. Kendrick Bourne. They signed Kendrick Bourne as well. Like, so suddenly now is this A.J. Brown and Julio Jones? It isn't. But, like, there's certainly a much more improved pass-catching core for Cam Newton than there was last year. And, of course, his value always comes from his legs. He had 12 rushing touchdowns last year, which was tied for 4th among all players, not quarterbacks, all players in the NFL. 23 goal-to-go carries, 42 red zone carries, all top 10 among all players. If Cam Newton, who last year I think had one game of over 175 passing yards, it was just the only thing he could do was run. If Cam Newton can get that up to 225 a game, you know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah.
And then you've also got the rushing ability. Yes, I think there is a scenario where Cam Newton becomes a top 12 fantasy quarterback this year.
So I agree with exactly everything you said right there, because in basically worst case scenario, he was still on a points per game basis, a mid-tier quarterback too.
Correct.
And I do think this is notable that the Patriots are A, calling him their starter, and B, to a man, if you ask anybody within that organization about Cam Newton, could not have worked harder, represented the team better, put more into this over the past year and 2 months he's been in New England. The reason why that matters, that's one of those things that you say and then the guy gets benched and you're like, he's just not good. Well, the point is that for now, he's the guy, and it may perhaps build that leash a little bit longer.
I'm just going to throw in one quick thing here just to add to that.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but sometimes there is a difference between a player's perception in the media and in the public versus in the locker room.
Sure, yeah.
And everything I've heard is that players love Cam, that within a locker room, people love playing with Cam, that he's a great teammate as well. And that's important as well for a veteran team coached by a guy like Belichick. Having the locker room's important.
Yeah, so I don't know what the percentage is, whether it's 15%, 25%, 40%. I'm not exactly sure that Cam Newton reverts to form. And I don't mean number one quarterback in fantasy, but gets back to that level where he's knocking on the door of being a top 10 or 12 quarterback is. But I don't think he merits a redraft pick right now. I mean, it's reflected in my ranking, right? Okay. I've got none of us have him ranked. So I was a little surprised you thought he maybe merits, just because, Matthew, there are other quarterbacks that I think are going to be going in that 15th, 16th round that represent comparable, if not better upside, right? And maybe I'm overestimating that. Maybe somebody like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and Trey Lance. Like, I'm assuming you take all those guys over Cam, right?
Yes, but I would. Here's the thing: my non-ranking of Cam is due to the fact that he hasn't, quote, been named the starter yet. Because I always
he's a starter.
I always rank based on if I had to draft today.
Right. Okay.
So my expectation is that he will officially be named the starter, and then once he is, he will be in that 11 to 20 range for me, probably closer to 20
Interesting.
than 11. But
That's
he'll
fair.
be in that range because the other thing about him is that there's certainly upside there with Cam, right? There's obvious tremendous upside with him. But the other thing is because the quarterback position is so deep, and we've talked about this, I'm okay taking a flyer on him, especially if I don't need him to be my starter. And that way, if Cam is back to being, super Cam, great, I've got something. And if he's not, then you can obviously drop him and move on.
Yeah, frankly, the Patriots have a good thing in terms of how their quarterback room plays out in this regard, is that if Cam plays really well and he keeps the job all year, they're probably a pretty darn good team this year. They won 7 games with nobody around, right? If he does not play well, or if Mac Jones just beats him out, that's a good sign for Mac and his future. So Mac is coming on, and Mac is certainly impressing. At the same time, he's a rookie, and the Patriots, you can't really use precedent because they had the same quarterback for 20 years. But,
Right.
but Bill Belichick obviously has not relied upon a rookie quarterback in the past.
In general, I feel like, and listen, you worked for the Patriots in the front office prior to coming to ESPN. That's a team that you know well. It doesn't feel like to me that, except in the rarest of cases, Belichick is much more of a veterans type coach, that he wants you to earn it onto the field. And it's like, to me, it would take something extraordinary, like an injury or just, an awful camp by Cam, which to this point has not happened, for Mac Jones to start.
Yeah, I think right away, but it could happen sooner rather than later is all I'm saying, which is why I'm a little skittish on using a late round pick on Cam Newton. But I agree with you. Like if you were to give him tell me like what's your 5-second assessment on Cam, it would be has the chance, if he remains a starter, to be a top 12 quarterback, but also has a chance to be a second stringer by week 3.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.